Rivers State sole administrator sworn into office.
Mr. President made it very clear in his broadcast, and if the main issue is that of maintaining law and order in the state.
Federal government to ensure access to healthcare for all Nigerians.
The government is very committed to ensuring that Nigerians, particularly those who are afflicted by diseases like HIV, TB, and malaria, continue to receive the care they need.
Federal Ministry of Health delivers vaccines to contain cerebral meningitis outbreak in Kebbi.
Most of the people that died as a result of this disease had self-medication.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall focus on passage of tax reform bills.
The House of Representatives has passed 4 tax reform bills, a major step towards overhauling Nigeria's tax system. At the moment, taxes contribute just about 6.7 to 10.8% of the country's total revenue so far. So they could be a game changer.
Well, absolutely, Ademola. These bills, initiated by President Bola Tinubu, were sent to the National Assembly last October. They are the work of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms, chaired by Taiwo Oyedele. Now, the committee was inaugurated in August 2023 to fix the complexities in Nigeria's tax system. And now, we are seeing some real progress.
So let's break them down. First up, the Nigeria tax bill. This one lays the groundwork for a more structured tax system. Think of it as the blueprint for how taxation should operate. Then there is the tax administration bill, which aims to make tax collection smoother and reduce dispute between taxpayers and authorities.
Then we have the Nigeria Revenue Service Bill, which will replace the Federal Inland Revenue Service, the FIRS, that is, with a new agency designed to streamline tax collection and management. And finally, the Joint Revenue Board. This one ensures better coordination between federal, state, and local governments. So everyone's playing basically by the same tax rules.
Well, these bills have been brought quite a journey from introduction to debates, amendments, and now the House of Representatives passage. They're a step closer to becoming a law. But what do these reforms really mean for you as a business owner, an employee, or even an informal sector worker?
Well, that's exactly what we'll be breaking down this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll examine what these reforms aim to achieve, how they could impact the economy, and what to expect next.
And of course, we'll be speaking with experts who will give us insight into the practical implications of these changes. So let's get it on. I'm Ademola Adeoye. Welcome to the program.
And I am Victor Azu. It's a pleasure, as always, to have you with us. We are coming to you live on the network service of the NTA, and at some point, Chukwudi Okoli Obaja will join us for the newspaper review. But first, let's get the news highlights from Dennis at Degunloye. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Victor and Ademola. Good morning, Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu has inaugurated Vice Admiral Ibok Ete-Bass, retired as the administrator of Rivers State. This follows the state of emergency the president declared in Rivers State and the consequent suspension of the governor, Siminalayi Fubara, and his deputy, Ngozi Odu. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice made clarifications on the matter.
We know the circumstances that led to where we are here, and Mr. President made it very clear in his broadcast. And if the main issue is that of maintaining law and order in the state, I think for any meaningful activities to take place in Rivers State, that is the utmost task that I have, to work together with all other stakeholders to ensure that we bring peace, order, and security and stability to the people and government of Rivers State and Nigeria at large.
Vice President Kashim Shettima has implored lawmakers across the nation to enact relevant legislation that would enhance nutrition and food security to ensure that every household in Nigeria has access to the balanced diets required for a healthy and productive life. He was speaking when he met with the National Legislative Network on Nutrition and Food Security at the Presidential Villa.
For too long, our responses to malnutrition have been fragmented, donor-driven, and inconsistent. Nutrition 774 changes that. It is government-led, government-funded, and government-implemented because we understand that food security cannot be outsourced. This N774 initiative is a beautiful idea, but the most important thing is let's walk the talk. Let's mobilize resources.
The federal government has approved the disbursement of 32 billion naira in adherence to Nigeria's Basic Healthcare Provisions Fund's guidelines, a supportive program for the expansion of primary healthcare services to ensure equitable access to healthcare by all Nigerians, especially women and children, including ambulance schemes and disease control. Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Ali Pate, who revealed this at the 10th Ministerial Oversight Committee meeting, says the commitment to prioritizing healthcare financing of President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda on health is on course.
To ensuring that Nigerians, particularly those who are afflicted by diseases like HIV, TB, and malaria, continue to receive the care they need. And it is in that direction that the President provided for in 2025 resources for us to begin to meet the gap. The gap is there, but we are stepping up because we have the responsibility to take care of the health of Nigerians. And BHCPF is one line item for the primary healthcare platform, which pays for the primary healthcare system, the frontline health workers, but there are also the commodities and test kits for tuberculosis.
Meanwhile, the Federal Ministry of Health has delivered 3,000 vaccines to the Kebbi State Ministry of Health to contain the cerebral meningitis outbreak in some local government areas of the state. The Permanent Secretary of the Ministry, Dr. Shehu Nuhu Koko, disclosed this while updating newsmen on the outbreak in Birnin Kebbi.
During the surveillance and also the monitoring visits that were carried out in some of the places in these three local governments, it was found out that most of the people that died as a result of this disease had self-medication.
The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has arrested the Accountant General of Bauchi State, Sirajul Mohammed Jaja, for alleged 70 billion naira fraud. He was arrested in Abuja along with Aliu Abubakar, an unlicensed bureau de change operator, and Sunusi Ibrahim Sambo, a point-of-sale operator. The FCC also says the suspects were arrested in connection with investigations into the Bauchi State Governor, Bala Mohammed, for money laundering, diversion of public funds, and misappropriation to the tune of 70 billion naira. The investigation reveals that a cash withdrawal of 59 billion naira had been made through various bank accounts opened and operated by the Accountant General on behalf of the state governments. Well, those are the highlights of the news at this time. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Ademola and Victor after this break. Stay with us.
I am Oluremi Tinubu, the global and national Stop TB champion. Many people have asked why I've chosen to champion the fight against a disease like tuberculosis. My reason stems from a deep personal experience. I once had a friend who unfortunately fell ill and concealed the nature of his sickness until it was too late. Eventually, after he passed, we discovered he had tuberculosis. Sadly, due to the stigma and discrimination surrounding the disease, he would not speak up or seek for help. His death was a painful reminder that we could have intervened and saved a life if only we had known earlier. Tuberculosis is an airborne disease that primarily affects the lungs, but can also impact other parts of the body. Being airborne means anyone, regardless of their social-economic status, can contract it. In Nigeria, one person dies of TB-related illness every 7 minutes, amounting to 206 deaths every day. Globally, one person succumbs to TB every 25 seconds, which is a staggering 3,456 lives lost daily. These deaths are entirely preventable because TB is curable if detected and treated early. If you or someone you know has been coughing for 2 weeks or more, coughing up blood, experiencing night sweats, or losing weight drastically, it might be TB. Please visit the nearest government hospital or primary healthcare center for proper diagnosis and treatment. TB treatment is free in all government and some private health facilities. Let us also remember not to stigmatize or discriminate against TB patients or those who have been treated for TB. Individuals who have been cured of TB cannot infect others. I call on all stakeholders, especially the private sector, to join us in the fight to end TB in Nigeria. Together, we can make a difference. Remember, TB anywhere is TB everywhere. End TB by 2030. Yes, we can.
Have you heard the news? The federal government of Nigeria, through its direct benefit transfer program, has started the disbursement of 75,000 naira per household in 3 installments of 25,000, 25,000, 25,000 naira. Each recipient must have a validated national identification number, NIN, to receive the payment on behalf of their household members. To benefit, your household must be in the National Social Register of Poor and Vulnerable Households in Nigeria. The federal government's direct benefit transfer program is helping to reduce the effect of suffering while promoting financial and economic inclusion for the poor and vulnerable population in Nigeria.
Ìjọba fún wa ní 75,000 NIN àti káàdì láti lọ gbà. Nígbà tí mo sì gbà, mo fi ṣe nǹkan tó dáa, mo ra oògùn nínú rẹ̀, mo ra oúnjẹ tí màá jẹ nínú rẹ̀, mo sì wọkọ̀ mi náà ń bẹ. A sì fi yòókù ṣe ọrọ̀ ajé pé ká tó máa rí gbé bá. A dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ìjọba wa òkè.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation, Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, in collaboration with the National Social Investment Programs Agency, National Social Safety Nets Coordinating Office, and the National Cash Transfer Office.
The new Hapix sachets. It has a thick formula, so all you need is just one sachet for your toilet bowl. It gives 10 times better cleaning and big savings too.
Wow, Helen!
Sparkling clean toilet with Hapix sachet.
Sometimes great things are worth waiting for, and for those who crave and wait, the experience is truly memorable. Introducing the new Dano Evaporated Milk, a creamy, tasty, nourishing way to start your day.
Very creamy and delicious. Now that's worth the wait.
Try Dano Full Cream and Dano Cool Cow Evaporated Milk and taste the Dano difference.
We're live in the open market for Epic 10X Challenge. My people, today I will show you how the power of new Epic 10X gives your toilet a better cleaning than bleach.
Than bleach?
Yes, so.
Impossible.
Toilets have stains which bleach cannot clean effectively. But Epic is thicker and sticks better, which gives 10X better cleaning versus bleach and kills germs.
Oh, wow.
You can now see that Epic is better than bleach.
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be a patient? If you must worry, then worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
The Nigerian national flag represents our country's history, culture, and identity. It was designed in 1959. The colors are Emerald Green 2.0, which represents agriculture, and Immaculate White represents unity and peace. Know how to handle our flag. Illuminate the environment or don't fly the flag overnight. Do not fly a dirty or tattered flag. Take such flag to the nearest National Orientation Agency office for proper disposal and replacement. The national flag can only be flown at half-mast on the directive of the federal government. The national flag must be flown at the same or higher height when displayed alongside other flags. Don't burn or allow the national flag to fall on the ground. Do not print, decorate, modify, or insert the coat of arms on the flag. Our national heroes are not buried with the flag. They are honored by presenting it to their next of kin during interment. Respect our national flag. Be a real Nigerian.
This message was brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
Thanks for staying with us. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Up next is Newspaper Review.
All right, and Chukwudi Okolubaja has joined us for the newspaper review. Good morning.
Morning, Victor. How are you doing today?
Well, I'm good.
Always good to see you.
Good.
Demo, how are you doing?
Well,
one day at a time.
Thank God for life.
Believe in God and believe in yourself.
All right, let's begin with the leadership. And the leadership leads with this story. FG defends emergency rule in Rivers State, and it has multiple riders. Says Fubara ignored security threats, encouraged militants. President's decision timely, that's according to AGF. We will work with you, state lawmakers tell Ibas. And NAS unsettled, reps in shouting march. PDP governors, NNPP, Amechi, others kick. Okay, and just above that story, there's a tiny strip which reads, troops kill 10 terrorists, rescue 101 in Katsina and Zamfara. That story is on page 20. And above the nameplate, FCCPC reaffirms commitment to fair market prices. That's on page 26. And beside that, FCTA clarifies land title revocations. That's on page 6. And to other matters, price hike likely as Dangote resumes sale of petrol in dollars. That's on page 7. This should interest Chukwudi, by the way. And to the strips on the right, the boxes on the right. Constituents divided over plots to recall Natasha. That's on page 24. Many feared death in Abuja tanker explosion. That's on page 6. And plots to unseat Agbebaku as Edo Speaker thickens. Page 23. That's for the leadership, and we head to the blueprint, which leads with health. Death toll in Kebbi meningitis outbreak rises to 56. FG dispatches 100,000 doses of vaccines. And that story is completed on page 8. The story of troops neutralizing terrorists is also here. And why FG will release Rivers allocations to administrator, that's credited to Fagbemi. It has 3 riders: Defense, Tinubu, clears Wike over emergency order. NLC, NBA, PDP, Amechi, others seek reversal, and I'll maintain law and order, Ibas assures. Right? No explosion at Port Harcourt refinery, NNPC clarifies. It's on page 20. And at the bottom of the front page of the blueprint, Wike approves 1.94 billion naira for procurement of earth-moving machines. Okay, and finally, in sports, World Cup qualifiers, we have to stop Osimhen, says Rwandan spokesman. Okay, Demola, before I get to you, just one more story. Many fear dead as CNG tanker explodes in Abuja. I think that was just yesterday, Demola.
Oh, yeah, you're correct. I have the Daily Trust newspaper with me, and just below the nameplate, many fear dead as tanker explodes on Abuja Road. Details on page 6. Poor sanitation, others push meningitis death to 55 in Kebbi. Details on page 3. EFCC arrest Bochi AG over alleged 70 billion fraud. 70 billion naira fraud. Details of that story can be found on page 24. Fuel price rise as naira for crude deal stalls. Experts seek government intervention. That's the major headline there. And we have the front page picture of the scene of explosion at Karu Bridge along Abuja Yanya Kefi Highway in the Federal Capital Territory yesterday evening. Then we have river crisis. Emergency rule can be overturned. Yadudu. Overruled Tinubu, NNPP, LP, others tell National Assembly. Over to you, Chooks.
Thank you, Demola. Osimhen is being watched by Rwanda, you said?
They should.
Do you know that it is actually the other guy that
Lookman.
But of course, Osimhen does well as well. We'll do well. It's not a very good Thursday morning. Many fear dead as a CNG truck explodes in Abuja. To be specific, accuracy is part of our news presentation. It actually happened close to Karu Bridge. Okay. You can still see the carcasses of cars flung on both sides of the road. You know, that thing is like a bomb going off. They are saying 7 bodies have been removed. From what I saw this morning, even though we didn't stop to watch, it might go beyond that. The questions that arise are... The questions that arise are, what was the state of this driver? You know, I keep telling people, thinking that driving is for dropouts. It's a very bad way of thinking, you know. A driver has to be a very intelligent person. It's not just that he has to be intelligent. He has to have his senses acute all the time. He should not be under the influence. But maybe more importantly, check the ages of people who drive tankers and trucks in Nigeria these days. You can see a 28-year-old. It's just like when I see a little boy, 13 years, on a motorcycle where I live, in the suburb of Abuja where I live. I say, when this little boy confronts a situation on the road, that is when you will know that he should have got to 18 before touching it, you know. The other thing to consider is the stipulation or the regulation that trucks and tankers should not use that road within some
specified time.
Specified time in times in the day or night or whatever. Has that stipulation been obeyed? Many things happen. But then we say, sorry about it. May God help relatives of the deceased and those who got injured. I don't know why a price hike is going to be is being contemplated, because Dangote may go to dollars instead of as the Naira for crude deal has not been renewed. What you ask is, why do we make headline material things that are administrative issues in this country? So it expires in March. What has happened to planning? Are we not aware of it? Why would a newspaper give us an alarmist nudge to get us to do what we should do? It's administrative. Is Dangote refusing Naira? NNPC, are they not able to do their job anymore to get that happening? There are certain things we talk about in this country that should not be newspaper stuff. It's administrative. Start early. Many of us are complaining of financial insolvency these days because we didn't plan our lives properly. That's what it is. Plan ahead. What is the news about renewing the Naira for crude? What is it? It's not fair. It's just not fair. FG defending the emergency rule in Rivers. Defense is important in response to any public outcry. It is called carrying the polity along. But the question you ask at the end of the day is, has what been done legitimately? Is it legal? Is it constitutional? Is 305, smiling at us after we took that decision? That's what matters. And if government has done its due diligence, what are they defending? It has happened. It's a fait accompli. It has happened. If you have any grudges against, go to court. It's as simple as that. And somebody is saying, that's fact with me, AGF is saying that it's given reasons why allocations will still go to the administrator. So the people should have been starved because there's emergency rule in there, I don't know the circumstances that lead to these situations, but I think the people of Rivers still deserve their allocations. If there's a lacuna in statutory provisions concerning that, let's go and rectify it.
The fate is not
money will
yet, until the National Assembly, give the nod. They are meeting today.
Those are procedural things.
Yeah,
those are procedural things. The important thing is, did the president follow due diligence, adopt due diligence when he...
In the first place.
It's as simple as that. If he didn't, we are going to say, hey, Mr. President, that's not how it should be. You can see what is happening to Trump. I saw Caroline Leavitt yesterday, the youngish spokesman of the White House. The lady has a struggle every day because he has a principle that thinks that judges are a pain somewhere. Victor, I said somewhere, please. He doesn't.
she has one hell of a job.
So it's one hell of a job, but I think she's doing well.
For a young.
I think she's doing well. Our bio Nanuga is doing well as well. He's a goodie oldie, So those are really the issues there, and I don't think we should be too perplexed or agitated over some of these things. As I said, the Naira for crude arrangement should be an administrative affair. Plan ahead.
Is it just administrative? Because Dangote says, look, we are no longer getting in Naira, and so we cannot sell in Naira because that will, not go well for us. So
maybe it's meeting
probably
a brick wall.
It's not sustainable. I don't know.
What is he not getting? What is he not getting in Naira?
He ought to get certain inputs in Naira to enable him also sell in Naira. I read, it's a bit sketchy here, but I read
when machinery is in place for a refinery, that means that your machines are in place, or whatever the trailers you bring into the process of production. What is the input that is regular, almost daily, maybe weekly or whatever? Is it not crude? Are we no longer supplying crude to him? I don't know. Victor, I'm not dismissing the point you're raising, but certain things sound artificial to me. And that is where good intention drives the lives of men. We said the other time that Supreme Court pronouncement do not solve every African problem. They may work in the UK, they may work in the US. Africa is a clannish community. My clan, my tribe, that's the way we are wired. If you're wishing it away, you're deceiving yourself. So when you plan for Africans, plan for those little those foibles, the funny little things that make us African. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Well, you're right, Chooks. They said that the mouth of an elder may stink, but not his words.
That's it.
Thank you, Chooks.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And what an elder sits down to see, a child will climb a tree, Iroko, whatever he likes, he's not going to see it.
Thank you. All right, we'll take a break now. Good Morning Nigeria continues. Stay with us.
Hey Nigeria, ready to breathe cleaner air and save money? Let's talk about gas. Drive with CNG, the smart, cost-effective choice. Fill up for less and travel further. Save money, save the planet. Switch to LPG for cooking. It's cleaner, healthier, and better for environment. Say goodbye to smoke and eye problems. Do you know Nigeria is a gas nation ranked 9th globally with over 209 trillion cubic feet of gas reserve? Gas isn't just for cooking and driving. It powers industries too. Cleaner, cheaper, and more efficient. And the best part, conversion centers are popping up everywhere. It's never been easier to switch to gas. Join the clear energy revolution. Choose LPG for cooking and CNG for your vehicles. Clean energy for brighter future. This message is brought to you by the Office of the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, supported by the Nigeria Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA.
Bye, Mom.
He's going to play in this weather. Why did you let him go? He might fall ill.
And if he doesn't go out for practice, how will he win more trophies? To protect our family from illness-causing germs during the rainy season, we use Dettol soap every day.
Dettol with Germ Defense gives you protection. Raining season brings a lot of germs, and Dettol soap's Germ Defense protects you from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
The Nigeria Coat of Arms is the official seal that represents the authority of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, hung on the wall behind the seat of the principal officer of the government, supported by the portrait of the serving President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It has 7 features. The black shield stands for Good Earth of Nigeria. The silver wavy band stands for the confluence of rivers Niger and Benue. The 2 white horses stands for dignity. The yellow flora is a common wildflower throughout Nigeria. The red eagle stands for strength. The wreath is in our national colors of green, white, green. The motto, unity and faith, peace and progress, is written on a beautiful yellow ribbon, and it's a maxim for all Nigerians. Be a real Nigerian.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, with undying demand. We make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we are more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, we are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry love. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
صدق الله العظيم المتوحد في الجلال بكمال الجمال تعظيما وتكبيرا.
Ramadan, the blessed month, is upon us once again, and your indispensable companion in Ramadan, Sahur Life on NTA, is back bigger and better.
Our theme for this 21st edition of the program is Navigating Difficult Times, the Help of Allah, and our team of erudite scholars are poised to offer insightful tips on dealing with life's difficulties.
Our companion segment, including Nasiha, Women Angle, Living with the Glorious Quran, are back bigger and better.
The popular quiz segment is now reloaded to accommodate more winners, both online and offline.
Come and partner with us at NTA Channel 5 Abuja, the unitary station, as we strive to bring you this year's episode of the program.
For donations and sponsorship, contact the General Manager, NTA Channel 5 Abuja, Old Parade Ground, Area 10, Garki, Abuja.
You can also contact us on 080-3314-7812
or 080-3568-8394.
080-3380-6162. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you abundantly as you contribute to the success of this soul-lifting program.
Sahur Live on NTA, your indispensable companion in Ramadan.
ولك الشكر يا الله على ما أنعمت به وأوليت.
Nigeria is perched on a treasure trove of solid minerals. Gold, coal, tantalum, tin. But none is more critical to our future or the world's future like lithium.
Let's talk about illegal mining operations. What is our strategy?
Thanks for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria. And to begin our conversation on the recently passed tax reform bills by the House of Representatives, let's take this background report put together by our correspondent, Ibrahim Bello Gunda.
Imagine a Nigeria where taxes are fair, simple, and efficient. A Nigeria where businesses thrive and citizens trust the system. This vision is now one step closer to reality, thanks to the passage of 4 landmark tax reform bills by the House of Representatives on Tuesday. The journey to this milestone began in October 2024, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu transmitted the bills to the National Assembly. Since then, the proposed laws have undergone intense scrutiny, including public hearings and input from Nigerians. So, what's in these bills? Legislative experts say the 4 pieces of legislation aim to transform Nigeria's tax landscape by establishing a new Nigeria Revenue Service to oversee tax collection and administration, creating a joint revenue board to harmonize revenue allocation, setting up a tax appeal tribunal to resolve disputes quickly, and simplifying tax laws and reducing bureaucracy. But what does this mean for ordinary Nigerians? In theory, these reforms should lead to a more efficient tax system, reduced corruption, and increased revenue for the government. This, in turn, could fund vital public services and stimulate economic growth. However, not everyone is convinced. Some critics argue that the reforms don't go far enough, while others worry about the potential impact on small businesses and low-income earners. Advocates argue that the reforms will stimulate economic growth and create jobs. As the bills head to the Senate for concurrence, will these changes usher in a new era of economic growth, or will they create new challenges? Legislative and tax reform experts will discuss the implications of these bills and their potential impact on Nigeria's economy, providing valuable insights into the future of tax administration in the country.
Well, you're welcome back. That report was actually put together by Ibrahim Dan Amidu. Well, we now have joining us to discuss the passage of tax reform bills. Our guest in the studio. Let me introduce first Professor Uche Uwaleke, Professor of Capital Market and President Capital Market Academics of Nigeria. Prof, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria once again.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Good morning, Nigeria.
All right. We have also been joined here in the studio by Yushau Aliyu, an economist. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you.
All right, let's start with Prof now. At least the tax reform bills has gone a long way right now, and with this passage, what are the key? Let's look at the key provisions of these four tax reform bills and how they will impact individuals and businesses.
Once again, thanks, Ola. Let me start by even commending the House of Reps for the quick passage of that of those bills. We expect that in no distant time the Senate will also do same, so that the harmonized version can be submitted to the President for assent. As you know, the bills are four. You have the if you like, the omnibus bill. Okay, that's the Nigerian tax bill that seeks to, if you like, consolidate all the pieces of legislation, tax legislation we have here and there. You have the PIT, you have the CI, personal income tax, you have the company's income tax, you have the stamp duties. So you have them, all over. The value-added tax, petroleum profit tax, So what that bill, seeks to do is to consolidate them, so that a typical taxpayer doesn't need to be going from one searching, different documents. You have the whole thing in one document, okay? And it also the entire bills, okay, also seek to even modernize the tax system. I talked about consolidation. Your consolidation and also reflecting, current realities. Take the case of the stamp duties, for example. Okay, the Stamp Duties Act that we are still operating in Nigeria today was enacted in 1939, in April 1939. And that is why, of course, we've had, amendments here and there. But you still find in that act things that are obsolete in terms of maybe sanctions or penalties. You still find references to Kobo, whereas we have gone way, past that. So, yeah, so that's the NTB. Then you also have the Tax Administration Bill. Okay. That also, if you check the Tax Administration Bill, it goes, in sync with the tax, the Nigerian tax bill, and then the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill. Okay, what that one seeks to do is to have just one agency that collects, taxes, in Nigeria for the purpose of harmonization, and that's why it seeks to replace the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
Yes.
Okay. Such that collections, all manner of collections done by agencies like Nigerian Port Authority, done by NIMASA, okay, done by Customs, okay, are now centralized. Okay, there are people that argue, if you look at it critically, Customs should actually focus on their primary mandate, which is, trade facilitation, and of course, monitoring the borders. So those are the primary mandates of the Customs. So in terms of collection, that the collection should actually be done by a centralized body. You have that in some other jurisdictions. In the UK, for example, and to some extent in India. In the UK, you have the Her Majesty's Revenue Service that does all the collection. So it has its own merits. As I said, one of the things it does is also to plug leakages. Okay, take the case of VAT, for example. You know that value-added tax is largely collected by the Federal Inland Revenue Service, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, but there is also the value-added tax component that is collected by the Customs. The import, VAT component is collected by the Customs. So you find a particular tax item being collected by different agencies. So what this revenue service will do will be to centralize collection. As I said, you plug leakages. Okay, you also enhance accountability, because from that central pool you can know what exactly is coming in with respect to a particular tax line. All right, then of course you also have the fourth one is the joint revenue board establishment bill, joint revenue board. Okay, well, again, what that one seeks to do is to not only set up the Joint Tax Board, but also the Office of the Tax Ombudsman. Okay. Yes, currently we have the Joint Tax Board.
Okay.
Joint Tax Board comprises you have the State Internal Revenue Service, and then the Federal Internal Revenue Service. Of course, the chairman of the Federal Internal Revenue Service is the chairman of the Joint Tax Board. Okay, but their role currently, has to do more with the personal income tax, issues around the PIT. But what this one seeks to do is to provide a body that will, if you like, wade in terms of disputes arising from, all manner of taxes.
Okay.
Yes, especially with respect to these multiple, taxes. Okay, and interjurisdictional taxes. So the Joint Tax Board, will handle that, including the Office of the Tax, Ombudsman. Okay. And that's why in those bills it has made provision that the funding of the Joint Tax Board and the Office of the Tax Ombudsman, in case of resolution of disputes, okay, will now be done from the Consolidated Revenue Fund, as opposed to leaving the open, asking them to go and be getting gifts and so on, to dilute their role.
Okay.
So essentially, I think the 4 bills, okay, that well, I will say, stay before the Assembly, especially that of the Senate, and will soon be presented to the President for assent. I think they will go a long way to improve the business climate that we have in Nigeria. If you look at the ease of doing business, ease of paying tax is one of the major pillars, and we have always lagged, in terms of the ranking on the ease of paying taxes. So this one will surely facilitate ease of paying taxes. Okay. Remember, the bills are also seeking to harmonize asset taxes, reduce the multiplicity of taxes. Okay, today we have officially we have as many as 60. Unofficially, as many as 200. So what this one is seeking to do is to streamline all those multiplicity of taxes to a single digit, not more than 9. So when you have that kind of system, of course, that makes your tax system simple. A good tax system has to be simple. Okay, that also makes your tax system, convenient. A good tax system has to be, convenient. Okay, people should know, should not have difficulty paying taxes, and people should also know what taxes to pay and when to pay them. So a good tax system should also be certain. So you have the principles of tax, okay, the essential principles of tax, or you can also the canons of tax, okay, they are all integrated into this tax bill. So whether you're talking about equity, certainty, simplicity, they are all enshrined in these bills. And that also goes to, speak to the issue of, again, what's the overall objective. I've talked about the idea of, enabling businesses. And that's also why you find these, massive exemptions. Exempting businesses with turnover of now increased to, 50 million. 50 million.
Yeah.
So that's to enable small businesses breed. Okay. So our current tax system doesn't appear equitable. It doesn't appear equitable. And I just give you an example with respect to small businesses. Look at the case of personal income tax as well. If you look at personal income tax today, it would appear that the poor person, the low income earner, are the ones paying tax.
Yes.
Because if you look at the way the thing is graduated, you find first 300, okay, 7%. So once you are earning income, okay, you must pay tax 700. And if you look at the top bracket, okay, above 3.2 million is 24%. So that tells you that anybody that is earning up to that this thing pays as much as 24%. And today, because of inflation, because of exchange rate issues, okay, a lot of people are already in that bracket. Yes, but what this one has done now is to increase it to reflect current reality. Now, you don't pay, you won't be expected to pay as much as 25%, unless you are earning as much as 50 million.
Okay.
So it's above 50 million that will now be subjected to 25%, 25% tax. Now, if you are earning below 800,000, you don't even pay tax at all. So that's the major difference between this one and the current one and the new one.
So if you're earning below 800,000,
yes,
you don't pay tax at all.
Yes, and the House of Reps, and the one they passed, they even made it clear. They said anybody any minimum wage should not pay tax. And if you calculate minimum wage multiply by 12, it comes around that. So if you're any minimum wage, you don't pay tax at all. That is not what is currently obtainable.
Okay, which means that most of the civil servants will
not exactly.
They will be exempted from this tax.
Yes, they'll be exempted. That's also the point. Nigerians should understand that that the whole idea is to remove the burden of tax from the low income earner. Okay, and then let the rich, pay more of this tax, because that is what obtains in many jurisdictions. In South Africa, elsewhere, the bulk of the personal income tax that is collected from the people that are earning, huge income.
Well, from what you have said, actually, it looks good, especially for the individuals and businesses.
Yes.
But we'll come back to the implementation of it, because that is the major issue. Okay.
I was going to get to Yusha Aliu. Prof has highlighted how this benefits the individual, maybe a bit about businesses, but how does this work for the economy?
How it works depends on the principle of operations. The new tax administration has streamlined certain aspects to which different component of taxes will be derived from the economy. So, but what is more significant as far as this is concerned is the issue of not tax administration, but the issue of joint tax board and its own operations. That is where the problem will arise, and that is where a problem will be solved, and that is where the contribution to the economy will be more pronounced, based on the fact that the entire principle of the concept of tax reform is to review certain fundamentals, derivation, and attributions which remain very significant as far as political coordination and economic coordination of the economy is concerned. So the principle of equity is what we are expecting first to play a role. The second, which is also very important, is the principle of the growth of the population, because anywhere tax is paid by individuals, and the secondly is paid by corporate organizations. That is why the CIP, company income tax, that is now reviewed, the principle was so outdated from 1961. The operational modalities of different companies, now it is changing, the economic concept is changing, the rebasing exercise of even the statistical body of the contribution of different sectors of the economy is also changing. Now, if you go to, for instance, the financial market, you now realize that previously, if a tax is imposed on transaction of your bank, you realize that certain components are not included presently. So there is important to understand how it's going to work and how the economy is working, and the gains that is coming out from the working of the new tax administration. In addition, one aspect which I personally don't want to dodge is the principle of equity in this tax administration. Professor has spoke about the tax relief on certain categories of individuals' income, probably pay as you earn. So putting all these components, if you are to impose, to be more diligent on what is called equity, you realize that value-added tax, which every consumer pays, whether rich or poor, there should be consideration of exempted product for the economy to enjoy the drives benefit of those goods and services. Recently, we have seen how the communication industry is pushing for a better operational modalities by increasing cost of production and then transferring it to the consumers. So that is what I am trying to put on equity Whereas the companies has to exist to pay their company income tax and other component of tax, consumers are the driving factors to the success of all these operational modalities and cost effectiveness of these industries. Therefore, a lot of consideration should be given, not just merely looking at the tax administration and the instrument to be used, but looking at other component of levies and rates which is being applied as far as certain products are concerned.
Okay, thank you, Isha, for that, your perspective there. Let's come back to Prof. I mean, he has raised some issues
Yes.
which I also want you to respond to.
Yes.
And the issue of the potential challenges, that, this tax reform bill may likely face, especially in its implementation. So how do you think this can be addressed?
Well, let me even say that it's good that the bills have left the House now. We're waiting for concurrence, from the Senate. And if everything goes according to plan, the implementation should kick in by July, by the second half of the year. And as I said, it's also important to note that the contentious areas, have more or less been, addressed. And the moment these areas are addressed, I think the implementation will be smooth. If you recall, one of the contentious areas is also what he mentioned, the aspect he mentioned, the VAT. Okay, and the good news today is that as far as the VAT is concerned, it would appear that all the key stakeholders are on the same page. When I say key stakeholders, I recall that in January this year, the Nigerian Governors Forum, came up with a position on VAT, saying that they don't want VAT to be touched. Okay. The bill, Nigerian Tax Bill, Section 56 of the Nigerian Tax Bill, had proposed, gradual increase in VAT starting from 2025 this year. Okay, from 7.5% to 10% this year. Okay, 12.5% by 2026. And then 15% by 2030. That's the way the recommendation graduated, yes. But the Nigerian Governors Forum, in its wisdom, of course, remember, that was also what raised a lot of issues. Certain segments said no, they didn't want it. So the Nigerian Governors Forum said no, the rate should be retained at 7.5. House of Reps also, have that same position, okay. And I also remember that even during the public hearing at the Senate, I went to make a presentation. I made a presentation on behalf of my association, Capital Market Academics of Nigeria. I think I was the third person that presented on that day. And I also shared the same opinion. I said that given the current situation of the country, the elevated inflation, and so on, that it wouldn't be in the interest of the economy to jack up the value-added tax rates now, okay? So that was the position of my association and many others. So now it would appear that that is settled. Okay. I don't think the Senate at the end of the day will also want to maintain that. So VAT is still going to be 7.5. In fact, there were even some people who even felt it should it should come down. But what is important is that it's going to be retained. Now the other contentious aspect has to do with the sharing of the VAT. Yeah. Now currently, VAT is collected by the Federal Inland Revenue Service. So once it is collected, the federal government takes 15%. The subnationals, states and local governments, take 85%. Okay, but what was recommended is that VAT is actually meant to be money for the states and local governments. Remember, it replaced sales tax, and sales tax originally was wholly that of the states. Okay, so it was meant to be for states, and that was why the committee recommended that let the states, subnationals, take the bulk of it. Instead of giving federal government 15%, let federal government also, give out 5% of its share. So the recommendation is that federal government should take 10%, maybe essentially to cover cost of collection, but let the bulk of it be enjoyed by the subnationals. Yes, so that's what was recommended, and I think too that the House, has retained that Okay, I don't think anybody is, is saying FG should take more. But the contentious aspect has to do with the horizontal distribution of the VAT, how it is now shared among the states.
Yes.
Okay, currently it is shared on the basis of where the tax is, the returns are filed, the headquarters. They are filed from the headquarters. So you hear of headquarters effect, right? Now, the recommendation is that it should be based more on the consumption. Okay, so currently the way it is shared is 20% is based on consumption. Okay, 50% is based on equality. Okay, and then 30% is based on population. Okay, that's the current sharing formula. Yes, but the committee recommended that let it be, VAT is a consumption tax. So if you are sharing it, it should be based on consumption. So they gave more weight to consumption. Committee gave 60% to consumption, 20% population, 20% equality. Okay, but what has happened now is one of the aspects that the House amended. So the House is saying that 60% consumption is too high. So they have reduced it now to 30%. So it is now 30% consumption, okay, 50% equality of states, and 20% population. So that is what the House has passed. We are waiting for to know what the Senate will do. But the argument in favor of the consumption is that VAT is actually a consumption tax. And if it's a consumption tax, the sharing formula should also give attention or give more weight to consumption. I think that's the philosophy behind the 60%, thing. Yes. The other thing on VAT, I talked about the issue of it was a contentious issue, but I'm sure, as I said, that has been, resolved. Having to reduce the one that's meant for consumption from 60% to 30%.
But there's one not quite resolved, because I know one of the issues raised by stakeholders during the public hearings was the issue of administration. Concentrating the chairmanship and CEO position in one person, that it doesn't bode well for tax administration.
Okay. I don't think that's not in relation to the VAT. You are talking about
that's why I said administration.
Yes, so that's to do with the chairmanship of the FIRS.
But how is that a problem?
Yeah, I think the FIR, my personal opinion, okay, you have, well, if you talk about corporate governance, they tell you in corporate governance, the CEO shouldn't also be the same as the chairman, okay, so that you don't give too much powers to one person. But certain institutions, okay, may require that. A good example is the central bank, where you have the CEO, who is the governor of the central bank, also the chairman of the board. Okay, that's also what's applying to FIRS. So now, I think what you're saying is part of the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Bill. Yeah. So that is where that issue has come up. So I wouldn't know how the House, has eventually.
But is there a conflict? I mean, is there a function meant for chairman that conflicts with that of CEO, such that it becomes strange to have one person make the calls for chairman and for CEO?
Now the question is, what's the function of the board? The major function of the board is oversight. Okay, oversight. The board has a responsibility to ensure that an organization or a company is well run. Okay, so where the CEO is same person as the chairman, so who does the oversight?
That's what the question is.
Yes, but as I said, you have some institutions that are, because of their nature, so sensitive that, and you also know in terms of approval, if you have a chairman different from the CEO, okay, approval limit for the chairman is usually, or the board is usually higher. So when it comes to approving something, the CEO will still have to take it to the board for approval. But when the CEO is also the chairman, it makes things a lot easier. So it has its own merits and demerits. But you know, the problem with us in Nigeria is that when we have provide for chairmanship different from CEO in sensitive organizations like that, most of the time the chairman is appointed by, of course, usually by the president. And what usually happens is that most of the time it becomes a political appointment. Okay, it's a political appointment, and not necessarily you're not necessarily putting somebody that is fit and competent in the position, but as a political appointment. Imagine if that kind of thing were to happen in the central bank. The kind of monetary policy we'll be having. So I think with respect to that, if you like, call it CEO duality, for the FIRS, I think the CEO can, continue to be the chairman.
As the
Yeah,
chairman,
the chairman.
as well.
Yes.
Okay. Let's come to Aliyu now. Aliyu, I mean, this tax reform bill has been applauded. I mean, especially the passage of it and all that. But let's look at the impact of it on economic growth and job creation. How do you think it will impact the economic growth and job creation in this country?
I think I have to first also put my own opinion as far as the passage of the bill is concerned.
Okay.
Right when the bill was submitted to the National Assembly in general, I'm confident that it will be handled professionally for two reasons. One, the Speaker himself is an accountant, very conversant with tax administration and policies and implication to the economy, because that is one. Second, I know quite okay it is done with good intention. You cannot just be trying to rebase the economy, recapitalize the bank, and at the same time also dollarize, make a $1 trillion economy without looking at the sources of revenues. That component is very significant, and that is why I commend the National Assembly for many reasons. You know, we wanted to make it a political challenge as far as nationhood is concerned, forgetting the fact that those in the Assembly, some of them are professionals, and also they employ the services of professionals to look into the details of the provisions of the law. Company income tax from 1961 to the recent development of a digital economy may not be healthy if you are undertaking a major economic reform and to push GDP and also to change the entire structure of the economy for collective prosperity. And that collective prosperity, some of the elements that is pronounced, especially the tax relief to category of income earners, without reform you cannot effect it. So, but how it goes to economic growth, we have to come back to the tax administration itself. The issue of who is chairman and other who is CEO, we should be aware that anywhere distribution or sharing of revenues, collection and sharing is concerned, you don't have to bring political element into it. The only thing is to bring integrity into the appointment of who is to be the chairman and CEO, that has the integrity to be respected, because anywhere where you are having this modernized tax administration capacity, you put the powers in one hand, so that the other component of the bill, that the joint tax will handle any disagreement, and while at the center of the board they are taking major decision guided by law. So economic growth fundamentally, as stressed by W.W. Rostow, is not by changing the atmosphere of sources of revenue, but changing the habit of the collectors and the payers. Okay. That's the first thing that we are expecting. So there is a serious job that is underlined for the new revenue service to come in function later this year.
Okay.
First, to educate Nigerians. By educating Nigerians, you educate them sectorally, you educate them at a political level to understand the importance of tax. Because all the argument centered on value-added tax is consumption. And consumption drives productivity. And productivity also translates to economic efficiency. And economic efficiency provides economic growth data. So my submission on this, as an opinion, is the fact that, of course, there is a very serious challenge that is coming, as we highlighted, with the value-added tax. But it is important to understand why people are paying taxes in the first place. They are paying it for their personal development. That's why one good principle of good tax is a principle of a quid pro quo, returns benefit. So whatever people are paying, they are expecting it back. And if it is coming back, it will now ginger their efficiency.
It back in,
yes.
in the area of infrastructure.
Let me give you the tax relief, for instance. Now, if an individual earning below 800,000 as cited by the law, now the disposable income will increase, and that increase in disposable income will definitely expand his potentials in the market. That is the purchasing power. And that purchasing power will translate to economic efficiency, to the productivity of different sectors of the economy, depending on what individual consumes. So, however, if we put that as a yardstick, then definitely the economic growth of this country will be more pronounced by good utilization of these taxes by the tiers of beneficiaries, the federal, the state and local government, using different formulas as advocated by the bill. Let me give you one challenge that is very, very likely to occur in the sharing based on the modality of population. I think that's the only angle which I look at. Who are consumers and what is population? We are speaking the same thing, in my own opinion. Because if you are sharing based on population, you are sharing based, and but the yardstick is probably Indomie as a product is produced somewhere in another state, but the consumers may likely be residing in a different place. So that is only the difference between the population and consumers. That is based on value drivers. But I think we need to put more emphasis on that population as a yardstick of sharing revenue for two reasons. We need to understand that the state politics, the creation of state, the creation of local government is also tied to number of individuals residing. So this is more of political, but for the consumption pattern is easily determined. Like now, if you talk of consumers of PMS, you cannot compare consumers that are in Lagos, Abuja, Kaduna, Kano, with consumers that are probably in Zamfara state. So that will give you a picture at which, even if we are to have more efficient economic growth, but we should understand that the fundamentals of the taxes collected is to put them back in infrastructure, social welfare, amenities. That is what will make more pronounced economic growth.
But well, thank you, Yusha Ali. One more thing, though.
Yeah.
You know, when the bill was initially proposed, one of the fears was that it will increase the tax burden on Nigerians. Seeing what the House of Representatives has passed, is that concern still valid?
You see, there is tax apathy worldwide. People don't want to pay taxes. The rich don't want to pay. The poor don't want to pay. But the state needs it. It's an exigency to have taxes. And no, even if tax rate is zero, Do you understand? Even if tax base is zero, there should be an avenue where government must find the resources to provide security, because that's more fundamental for all economies. So the burden we are speaking is depend on what you are consuming. If I choose to consume a bottle of soft drink and pay less, and you choose to consume a wine that has champagne that has higher taxes, you bear the burden. But obviously, it is true that value-added tax in Nigeria is higher than many counterparts in the world. But however, our resilience and our desire for economic development mandated us to pay that burden. And that burden is also, that is why I emphasize of that principle of quid pro quo. If we pay higher, it's coming back to us, but it should be at a bigger level. We pay higher rates, and then it comes to us in bigger. That is what will bring individuals to now believe in the new tax policy and believe in the democratic possibilities. That is the importance of it. And also, as an opinion, it is important to understand that the tax administration will from time to time be considering, do you understand, the performance of these tax collections, because with the new Revenue Service Board, services that is rendered by NIMASA is being transferred, services that is conducted by other educational taxes is also being transferred. So we have to be more efficient educationally with the education tax fund, so that our wards in the universities will begin to benefit with the loans that has been promised for them. The efficiency of the university should also be pronounced. These are ways at which the economic growth models can be simplified and then attributed to the outcome that we are expecting.
All right.
All right. We'll just take a pause here. We would like to join our correspondent, Abdullahi Ajay, who is at the scene of last night crash that occurred at Karu along Abuja Kefi Express with many casualties. Abdullahi, can you just give us an update of the situation there?
Okay, well, thank you for joining us over here. Well, it has been a reaction to the unfortunate incident that occurred yesterday, Wednesday evening, at the Karo Bridge along the Nyanya Kefi Expressway. Well, security personnel in their numbers are on ground to be able to complete the evacuation they started yesterday. And as we speak, I must tell you that there has not been any official figure as to what the number of casualties are so far. But I will be talking to a number of security agencies who have been on ground, also taking care of the business of controlling traffic, and also the evacuation of the carcasses of the vehicles involved in the incident yesterday. But, well, I have an official of the Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps who will be talking to us as to what they've been able to gather so far from the incident yesterday till now. All right, sir, can you just quickly tell us your name and what you think you've been able to put together?
Thank you very much. My name is ACC Agada Benjamin, the area commander of Area G, Karu, that is NSCDC. Yesterday, at about 6:30 to 7 p.m. yesterday, there was an incident of accident that involved Dangote trailer with CNG vehicle.
Can you just talk to the figures? What have you gathered so far?
Presently, at the moment, we've been able to ascertain that 2 persons are dead, then 4 are presently burnt beyond recognition, while others are injured. Some of the injured persons have been taken to Custom Hospital, Nyanya, about 12 of them, then Karu. And then some of them were also moved down to Asokoro presently. So these are the information or figure that we've just concerning the.
All right, quickly, how have you been able to manage the crowd of commuters coming around here?
Yesterday it was hectic. With the effort of the sister agencies like police, NEMA and others, we've been able to curtail the number of, the vehicle that were coming towards the area when the incident happened. But it was very, very hectic to control those.
All right, I must thank you, AC Agada, for talking to us on Good Morning Nigeria. Well, before we go, let's quickly also talk to the councillor representing Nyanya Ward, who is also the speaker of Abuja Municipal Area Council. Yesterday we were together here, and here we still have him this morning. Let's get to feel his reaction so far. Can you talk to us on what you saw yesterday and what effort you think should be done to contain incidences like this?
Yeah, I think it's a very pathetic situation we find ourselves. This issue has become a reoccurrence event year in, year out, and it's not palatable. It shouldn't be. We shouldn't see this happening all the time where we have a viable government existing. I think what we need to do now, like I've always said, is that there is a need to introduce a barricade, because this vehicle that caused this were stopped by the VIO at Kubo. No, just before Kubo, immediately after barracks, he refused to stop. So, but if there was a barricade, you don't need anybody to be there to stop him. Ordinarily, he would have, seen the barricade, and he knows that his vehicle cannot go beyond that barricade. He will stop, he will park, and wait till the time that the barricade will be open before he can access the road. So, I think that is one of the quickest solution we can introduce immediately. With a barricade, introducing a barricade, you don't need more than 1 week to introduce it and to curtail a lot of things. And then you can hold somebody responsible if anything happens. So this barricade was supposed to be blocked or locked at the hour of 3. But this accident happened after 3. Where were you that you did not lock this barricades?
All right, thank you, Matthew Danjuma, Speaker Amak, for talking to us and also expressing how you feel about this unfortunate incident. Well, the rescue operation continues because we still have carcasses still lying on the expressway. We're still awaiting to see how it will be evacuated for the free and smooth flow of traffic along this place. But trust us, we'll keep you updated as to the latest development around this very scene of the unfortunate incident.
Abdullahi Ajia, thank you very much, and we will sure get back to you when we think you would have an update for us. Thank you very much. Now, getting back to our conversation, we have been joined here in the studio also by Professor Paul Namchi, who is a member of the House of Representatives representing Enugu East and the issues of Federal Constituency of Enugu State. A pleasure to welcome you to the program.
My pleasure being here. Thank you.
Well, we've been having a lot of conversation. Of course, maybe you would have been privileged to have listened a bit to Yusha Aliyu and Professor Waleke. But how easy was it, given the controversies that trailed the presentation of the bills in the first place? How easy was it going through, and what made the difference at the end of the day?
My pleasure again being here. I think it wasn't easy in the first place, but people say there's a word like compromise, and that compromise was made. And at last, I think the passage of the bill was easier than thought. It will be. Most importantly is that there was also voice for reasons. The executive were also eager to listen to the people. There was an ample time given for people to actually air their views. Vis-a-vis also, the public hearing was well attended, and most of the articulations were also considered. So there was all this, the agitation by regions, agitation by professional bodies and others were really taken into consideration. And at last, we should also applaud also the people that did the bill, but also the legislators that made sure that the interests of the various parts of the country were taken into consideration, and there was no more rancor or no more cries of different issues of marginalization or subversions by individuals and by companies and by businesses.
So you had enough inputs from civil societies, groups, and the general public as well.
There was enough. I think we're also planning to also publish those inputs. There was enough inputs. There was enough, even from religious bodies and from also socio-cultural organizations. Those were really taken into consideration, and I was really happy to be part of the people that worked on the last part of the bill before it comes to the floor of the House.
So what's the next step now in the process of the bill?
Signing, assent. We're done with everything we need to do. It's now on the executive to...
What of the Senate?
Something. We also start... It was in sync with the finance committee of both houses.
No, okay, so the details are the same. There will not be need to harmonize.
No, they can be different.
Because the Senate hasn't passed, and that will leave some wondering, if you already harmonized, you are already in sync, why has the House passed and the Senate not passed?
I think maybe just exigencies. The Senate and the House has also done their harmonization, even before bringing it to the House, to the floor.
Okay, what support system did you put in the bill to assist taxpayers in complying, with the new tax laws? What support system?
Well, it's various. One, I would just start with two. There's a kind of the progressive income tax, where people with less than 800,000 naira are exempt from tax. Then also there's this support for the SMEs and the medium entrepreneurs, where most of them, people who earn less than, usually it used to be 25 million to pay tax, but now it's been increased to 50 million before that. So within that time, if you don't earn up to that, you wouldn't be paying that income tax. Then there's also all the levies, usually, or we could say double levy taxation on companies, where like the Education Trust Fund and digital information and others. Those things has been compressed into one development levy. And that's progressively, it is now 4%, but it's progressively as it goes to 2026, it will be 2%, which is also very good for the companies, so that they don't go on paying different taxes in form of one tax in form of many. These are,
Okay, those are some of the support systems.
Yeah.
All right, you want to ask him a question?
I wanted to stay with him one more time. Having laws has never been Nigeria's problem. Yes, this tax sector may be a bit old, but we've always had laws. It is implementation that is always the issue. Are there structures in place to ensure that these reforms don't stay on paper?
I also want to disagree in one place in terms of now we have always had laws. Yes, we have always had laws, but the timing of laws also matters. Let me give an instance in the case of this tax law. The previous ones we are doing didn't take into consideration there will be digital businesses, there will be e-commerce, and there will be other sustainable development businesses. So now, if we must, the country must also follow the global financial trend in what they do. In that case, there's need for updates. If you don't update, you leave yourself back. There's much loophole. The tax is meant also to cover some loopholes. And before I came in, my brother here has also been talking about where some duties have been ceded. It's not that it's completely ceded, but it's also that there's a timely monitoring of income, of the revenue. And also, when these things happen, if you give some people some leeway to save, they will be more compliance. But when you squeeze people, the people tend to run away from every other thing. That is the nature of man, to run away from anything they see as being adverse to their existence. But in this case, and also, I must also say that one thing I would say that not many people know a lot about the tax system in Nigeria. There is this issue that, in the young times, in the previous times, where you see in my area say, this person has been working for tax. People are liking people that work for tax system as people that are against the community. But today it's becoming different. You hardly could find maybe in a community where you don't have people that are engaged in tax system. So they are now part of you. People arrest their people. When the tax men wear different uniforms and come home, most of the people in the village start running because
So there is need for to create awareness,
and that is what this has done.
Okay.
It has created, maybe there's a lot of noise about tax, but it also has its own merit that everybody became aware of what is going on.
All right, we'll talk more about the merit when we'll take the break now. When we come back, we'll talk more about the merits.
All
right, stay with us.
Well, creativity is so broad. I would say whatever it is that you're creative about, it takes a lot of practice before you become very good. So if it's something you intend to pursue, it's something you have to keep doing. You have to keep practicing. It's not going to be an overnight success, which a lot of people look for. But if it's something you're determined about, but the drawback rather, is that you need what is called staying power. While you're developing your creativity, you need to earn a living. So I know that's where the conflict usually comes in, especially with the hardship in the country and all that. But I think a lot of encouragement from the private sector to create incubator hubs. We've had some of those in tech. We need those across various sectors as well. Incubator hubs where these ideas can come in, be developed, be encouraged, be funded, and then we can expand it from there.
Content creation, while it may sometimes get a bad rap, I think it's actually very important because we have to see ourselves. We have to see ourselves living our lives. We have to show and share our stories. I think that's very important. Now, the job after that is to be able to digitize those stories into something that can provide data and insights, that can ensure that we can be able to support whole-scale industry in these spaces, to ensure that the amount of money that each content creator is getting exceeds what is currently happening for many content creators. The same content creator who lives in Nigeria will be earning less than a content creator who's living in the US or the UK or Japan. And we've got to also bridge that gap because most of that is being driven by the ability of the consumers to pay for those goods and also the pricing that many of these platforms have. So I think this is not the job for the content creators and the young people. This is a job for people like myself in the ecosystem who can help support the right pricing, to advocate for the right policies, to support economic development for consumers who want to consume that information and that content. And even beyond content creation, we're seeing that many people are stepping in behind the camera. They are producers, editorial, they are graphic designers, they are in technology, but maybe not in front of the camera. And what we want to say is also, we need those people too. We need those stakeholders involved. And the job of many policymakers, DFIs, is to ensure that the strategic investments get there, the collaboration gets there, and we're deliberate in how we're saying we want to support innovation in our continent.
There's an age group where your brain function is at its maximum, and that's the age group we call the youth, isn't it? So we need the youth, the younger generation who have the energy, the imagination to be equipped with the proper education, the proper tools, the proper encouragement, and then take what innovation they bring out and turn it into mainstream developmental ideas. So you find a lot of things that are invented by people in school or straight out of school. We need our patent laws to work so that they can earn a living from their imagination. Once the imagination is just for a one-year festival or an event, then it's not worth it. Somebody creates something, we need to get our patent laws to work, we need to enforce them, and then the private sector can use those patents to develop things and encourage more people to be more creative. Back in the days, yes, you had to be an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor. Today we have programmers, we have AI specialists, we have people that are doing ethics on genetics. Those things didn't exist 50 years ago. So there are new areas that need to be explored. The question really, apart from the parenting, does our educational curriculum cater for what the needs of the world will be in the next generation? Because our curriculum is dealing with the issues of the past. We need the government and the private sector to redo the entire educational curriculum to be forward-focused, not retroactive.
The stakes are high as the Super Eagles of Nigeria are back in action in the 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifiers as the hunt for a ticket to North America heats up. The stage is set as the Super Eagles head to Kigali to take on Rwanda's Amavubi at the Amaro Stadium on Friday, the 21st of March. Rwanda versus Nigeria. It is first versus fifth in Group C. It is 90 minutes of passion and endless skill. Don't miss a second of the action. Watch it all unfold right here on the 21st of March.
Afro Sport, your freedom of sport.
All right, thank you for staying with us. This is still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA, and we've been discussing the tax reforms recently passed by the House of Representatives. Of course, we are waiting for the Senate to do same, and then for onward transmission to the President for assent. And just before we went on that break, we were talking with Professor Namchi, and now maybe I move to Professor Waleke to make his input on the VAT, which has remained at 7.5.
Yes, I told you that I was also at the National Assembly to make a presentation that was during the Senate hearing on behalf of my association. And of course, we applauded the tax bills, particularly the areas that we think would go a long way to promote the capital market. Mm-hmm. But one area that we also had reservation had to do with this VAT, which we also said that it wouldn't be nice to increase rates at this time. So it's good that the rates are retained. But more importantly, it's also important for Nigerians to understand, and that's why the issue of tax education is important, that the reforms around VAT is not just about the rate, okay? It's also about the way the VAT is administered. Mm. VAT is supposed to be value-added tax, okay? The final burden, the ultimate payer is the consumer, right? So if you're a producer and you have spent money on your input, you bought inputs that attracted VAT, you are expected to recover those inputs. Input VAT. So you claim input VAT, okay, and then transfer the output, okay? But that is not the way it happens. It's been happening in Nigeria. Most people don't get back their input VAT. And that's why the committee, in its wisdom, had recommended that basic items, that currently are exempt should actually be zero rated. There's a difference between exemption and zero rating. What is that? Okay, what's the difference? Now, let me give an example. You buy, you're a producer, you make bread, right? Bread is maybe, let's say, is exempt. Exempt means if I sell the bread, okay, there will be no VAT on the bread, so bread is exempt. Okay, but the person that has made the bread, okay, must have bought something on which he or she had paid. Like
flour.
No, flour Flour, sugar, milk cannot. They may also be exempt. Okay. But you must have bought something like leather or whatever. The packaging.
Okay.
The packaging that may have attracted VAT. Okay. Now, when you exempt bread, so the person cannot even recover that input VAT. But when you zero rate it means you now bring it in, okay, and say it's 0%. 0% means there will be no VAT, right? But that you're also saying the person that has incurred input VAT can also recover input VAT.
Okay.
Okay. So with respect to basic items, now it's now the position for those producing those basic items that has been enhanced. So that's what the reform is all about. And it also says when you can't get your refund, that you're also entitled to even deduct it from the whatever you are going to remit to the tax authority.
Okay,
so,
you can deduct it.
Yes, there's a provision that says that it can be deducted. Yeah, first of all, you're entitled to a refund, and the technology of fiscalization that around the VAT now will enable you to get that quickly. But where it doesn't happen within some specific days, you can make deduction. So I'm saying that the reforms, the VAT reforms, are very much in order. They seek to ensure that VAT works the way it ought to be, value added. Value added is on consumption, and anybody spending money on input VAT should also recover the money on input VAT. Now, the House of Reps too, in their wisdom, okay, of course they've made a number of changes. He mentioned one, the issue of the development levy. Okay, what's the whole idea? Again, is to streamline taxes to avoid multiple taxes. Okay, that is the original intention. But what they have also done, which I also support, is to say these agencies, whether it's TEFON, whether it's NASENI, whether it's NIDA, okay, there shouldn't be a terminal clause for their, they should continue, okay, and be funded using that development levy. Currently, what we know is that for TEFON, education tax, which used to be 2%, 2021 Finance Act increased it to 2.5, 2023 increased it to 3%. Okay, that's the major source of their funding. 3% of companies' accessible profit. For NIDA also gets 1% of companies' pre-tax profit. Certain companies in banking, telecom, insurance, IT. So all these amount to multiple taxes. So that's the intention of having that development levy.
To harmonize.
Yes. Okay. Then there's also the issue of inheritance tax. Okay, the committee has recommended inheritance tax, but I think the final thing is the inheritance tax should not apply where somebody has inherited property and is not using it for profit, making, income making purposes. I think that's the modification made there, and also issues around the free trade zone. Okay, so a number of changes, they have made, but holistically, I think the bill has passed, okay, will go a long way to improve the business climate, in Nigeria. And so the question that Victor asked earlier, is not really going to, be a burden on the taxpayers in terms of increased burden on the taxpayers. Okay, on the contrary, it's reducing the burden on low income earners. Okay, he gave the example with respect to the personal income tax. People earning below 800,000 no longer paying tax. With respect to businesses, turnover, not more than 50 million. So when you have these exemptions, okay, it will enable, just as he has said, for individuals, increase disposable income. For companies, you also encouraging those companies to grow. Okay. So when they grow to the point where they come into the tax net, you can now begin to tax them. So overall, I think the tax reforms are good. I'm sure there are things that will also help the government achieve their target. This year, we are expecting 4.6% GDP growth rate. Okay, and I think these tax reforms, if they come into effect in July, as it's been expected, they will help to drive, GDP.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Before we come to Aliyu, but let me come back to you, Prof. Namchi. I want to find out if there is a provision in the bill to address the potential tax evasion, and avoidance schemes, by some people, and what penalties, have been put in place, for this.
Yes, yeah. I hope you know the bill has also created a tax administration tribunal, kind of.
Okay.
And yeah, so with it, and their income comes from first line charge. So nobody's withholding them from their duty, maybe by withholding their finance. That's also one. But also, and the provision also there, because that is also to prevent tax evasion. But also, what was also done there is that you can't go and seal anybody's premises without court order. So you also need a court order to also go and execute certain restrictions on people. But let me also comment that something he could have, that is innovative that has not been mentioned. The income tax has also been exempt for the armed forces from the bill. So those that protect the integrity of the country are no longer paying personal income tax. This is also one of the things. They came actually to make an input, and the Committee on East Wisdom also approved it. And also, I think there is a lot from the bill, especially with respect to enhancing development. One, you will also notice that the oil revenue is not steady, is not stable. There's complete shortfall in revenue coming to the country. We need also foreign direct investment. We also need a kind of stimulating the burden of that tax paid, and also to remove the burden on the lower income earners. That's one good thing that some of those the tax law or the review has also done for the country. And I'm sure that as time goes on, it will also shore up the revenue of the country.
Now, what's the fate of TED Fund? TED Fund, Aseni, and Co. that were designed to phase out?
No, it's on the contrary. Their money accruing for TED Fund has also been increased. More, I think
and it's not going to be phased out anymore?
No, it's not going to be phased out anymore. In fact, it's the number one among, I think it's either 10 or 20% of that national levy. So I think from annually, if we're getting something like about 20 trillion, I think they should be earning about 1 trillion now. They should be getting about 1 trillion now.
All right, bro, thank you. Yusha Aliyu. Now, this effort was led by the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms. I like to think that they've done a good job given the response that we have seen so far from, virtually every angle. So what would you say should be their responsibility going forward? If there is none already in place, what would you recommend?
Tax education to Nigerians. The committee should, after submitting and succeeding at the National Assembly, should come back and initiate how Nigerians can be properly educated and how the operating agencies can be properly monitored, and at December make recommendations. But what is more important is to consider adjustment of tax base rather than tax rates.
Explain.
Okay. Well, I just want to say you're talking about the mandate of the committee, what they should be doing going forward. If you notice, the name is Fiscal and Tax Reforms Committee. Fiscal and Tax Reform. So, fiscal policy is broader than tax. So that committee is not only dealing with tax. What is before the assembly now is tax. But there are other aspects of the committee's work that will still eventually come to the National Assembly for approval. Okay, because I am aware, to the best of my knowledge, the committee has also done a lot of work with regard to even issues to do with debt management. Okay, issues to do with budgeting. Okay, reforms to our budgetary process. So all those will still come to the National Assembly. So it's just like the first phase is what it's been, so the committee's work is still, the mandate is broader than just not just about tax. And as part of my concluding statement, let me also observe that there is an aspect that the National Assembly, okay, retained, which in my view, okay, or rather did not approve, which in my view should have been retained, and that has to do with the company's income tax rate. The committee has, had recommended that CIT, company's income tax, should be lowered, gradually from, it's currently 30% for large companies. It should be reduced to 27.5%, okay, in 2025, and by 2026, it should drop to 25%. So that was the recommendation. But both the Nigerian Governors Forum and the final outcome now from National Assembly, okay, would appear that the CIT should be retained at 30%, as opposed to what the committee recommended that it should be reduced. Now,
I think it came down. It came down to 25.
The final recommendation?
The final recommendation.
Okay. What I saw, the municipal report said,
no,
the committee said...
I even have it in my
Okay, that is fantastic. I want to commend you for that, because the reasons are obvious. If you look around us, look at Ghana, look at, in Africa, for example, Nigeria's companies' income tax for large companies is among the highest, and it's not competitive, in terms of attracting foreign direct investment. So we need to lower it, and that's what made the committee recommend that it should drop to 25% by from 2020. So if the House, I'm glad to know now that the House actually approved it. Yes, that aspect of recommendation. I'm aware that Nigerian Governors Forum in January, okay, did not. They said if you are returning the VAT at 7.5, also retain the company's income tax at. I think that was the conclusion then. But I'm happy that the House...
I think there was a give and take,
yeah.
If I can come in.
Yeah.
There's a give and take there that, the VAT also includes for the states. Yeah. So because it includes for the states, and the other one, the give and take has to go. Please, if this is happening, the other two should also happen. So that was what happened. But it's went down to 25, while the states get 55% from the VAT. So there was a bit of give and take that solved that problem.
Okay, all right. I mean, while just rounding up our discussion, let's just leave. What support system do you think should be put in place to at least to assist, taxpayers in complying with these new laws?
What is more important is what I said. Emphasis should be given to tax base rather than tax rate, and we can see vividly what Professor and Honorable Member mentioned. You look at the rates at which you are charging, so that you can stimulate economic efficiency, which is required for economic growth, because the target of the economy is to have a collective prosperity. This collective prosperity has to do with the income of individuals. The groupings is considered. Once you look at somebody earning 800,000 not pay with a tax relief, it's a good incentive. Then other incentives that I said must be brought back to the taxpayers is the facilities to operate in terms of good medical facilities, good road, good network, good security. These are things that we want to see probably in the budget 2026, probably with the working of the new revenue service. We will see more efficiency, and that efficiency should translate. And if it has been, if it is translated, then we expect to go in our debt cycle to begin to avoid borrowings and then concentrate on what we are generating. That will add value.
I guess it's a fine place to leave the conversation, but I dare say that it's not just going to be seeing it in the budget, but seeing it on ground, because that's the biggest incentive, for taxpayers to be happy to pay tax. So let me thank you, Yushau Aliyu, economist. Thank you very much for your time and perspective.
Thank you very much.
Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
And Professor Uche Waleke, Professor of Capital Markets and President, Capital Market Academics of Nigeria. It's always a pleasure having you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Victor.
We thank you for coming.
Thank you, Damola.
I'm Professor Paul Nnamchi, member of the House of Representatives, representing Enugu East and the use of Federal Constituency of Enugu State. Thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing your own perspective to it. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, that has been Good Morning Nigeria. We trust you enjoyed it just as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. Tomorrow is for another edition, and we hope you keep the date. I am Victor Azu.
And I'm Ademola Ade. Enjoy the rest of the day.